communities and cultures. Yet we know less of its history than almost anywhere else on Earth. But that's beginning to change. In the last few decades, researchers and archaeologists have begun to uncover a range of histories as impressive and extraordinary as anywhere else on Earth. It's a history which has been neglected for years, and it's largely without written records. But it is preserved for us in the gold and statues, in the culture, art, and legends of the people. My name is Gus Casely-Hayford. Over many years, I've studied the history and culture of Africa. As an art historian, I'm used to drawing stories from mute objects from the past. I'm going to discover the history and find out what really happened to the lost kingdoms of Africa. In 1871, a German geologist exploring southern Africa stumbled across these extraordinary ruins. He was astonished by what he found. A vast stone city, stranded in the empty savannah. Great Zimbabwe. He had no idea who was responsible for the astounding feat of architecture. But he was sure of one thing. It was too sophisticated to have been built by Africans. Thankfully, these assumptions have been discredited today. But only now are we piecing together the fragments we know about this lost civilization and its connections to other kingdoms of pre-colonial southern Africa. Could Great Zimbabwe really have been an African El Dorado, a city built on? In this film, I'm going in search of the story of one of the most mysterious cities and societies in Africa. I don't think we can understand this kingdom without understanding the civilizations and kingdoms that grew up around it. It was part of a rich and fascinating history, largely unknown, the history of wealth, trade, and gold. My journey to find out about Great Zimbabwe would take me from the Swahili coast in modern-day Tanzania to Mozambique, South Africa, and hopefully to modern Zimbabwe itself, where no BBC crew has been allowed to film for 8 years. My first stop is right here at the edge of the continent, where Africa meets the Indian Ocean. This is the ancient Swahili coast. For centuries, people have been drawn here from as far away as China, India, and the Middle East. And they've been drawn here by trade. Trade in goods, but particularly trade in gold. For many, Western scholars paid little attention to the history of this coast. They didn't think it fitted into the wider trade patterns of the ancient world, to Arabia in the north and India in the east. But recent research now suggests that this coast was central to an international trade in gold. Gold originated in Great Zimbabwe, 1,500 kilometers inland. And I think this ancient trade route may lead to a better understanding of what Great Zimbabwe actually represents in the untold history of this continent. There's evidence to suggest that traders were already coming to this far afield as long ago as the 1st century AD. I've got my holiday reading with me, which is, well, it's a bit more than holiday reading. This is the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, which is a 1st century guide to the Indian Ocean. It talks about all the sorts of wonderful places that merchants and sailors could have travelled in that time to ply their trade. And it talks about this place called Rapta, which is supposed to be the most southerly port in Africa that you could then travel to. The Periplus is an ancient Greek text which describes the ports and cities which dot this coast all the way up to Arabia. A According to the Periplus, Rapta was the place where traders from India and Arabia came to buy ivory, fine tortoiseshell and rhinoceros horn. In return, the people of Rapta imported spears, daggers and glass. But unfortunately, the Periplus is vague on the exact whereabouts of Rapta, and the stories of this trading city have been dismissed as legend. Now, however, Professor Felix Chami of the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania thinks he might have found it. Are you Felix?
How are you, man?
Hey! Hi, I've heard a lot about you. I've been reading my Periplus in preparation for this.
Good, man.
Well, I know you're the man to show me around.
You're welcome.
I mean, the legendary Rapta. I mean, if you found it, this is quite something, so I'm expecting a lot. Felix Chami is a world-renowned archaeologist whose work has been instrumental in piecing together the ancient history of the Swahili coast. If he has indeed found Rapta, this will rank as his greatest discovery yet. It will also prove that this region was a vibrant part of the ancient world. Did you see a crocodile? Seriously?
Yeah. Oh, that's a...
It's a lizard, isn't it? Monitor lizard. It's just amazing. Felix and I are on the Rufiji River, which flows to the Indian Ocean from deep within the African interior. You managed to do it and not get any mud on your shoes?
Yeah. The other side was better, I told you.
Felix believes that Rapta once stood near the banks of this river. But Felix's idea of Nia is a little different from mine.
It's also dangerous. You can see there are snakes here.
There are snakes.
And when you are
a big fan of snakes, Felix.
The kind of snakes? All sorts. Pythons.
Pythons?
Pythons, yes.
The Periplus talks of Rapta as a great trading center, a cosmopolitan metropolis where traders from all over the ancient world would meet and barter and try to make a quick buck. But it's difficult to imagine such a vibrant place existing here, in this riverside wilderness, with crocodiles and snakes. I'm beginning to wonder if the charming Felix Chami has made a mistake. Then, 1 hour later, in the dirt beneath our feet, fragments of an ancient world emerge.
This is the beginning of what I call Rapta site. And actually, if you look down, there are pottery of 2,000 years. Probably has been brought down from the settlement. And if you again move and see the ground, yes, you can see, for example, you can see this one. This is a piece of pottery. For sure, it is 2,000 years old.
Once again, they're everywhere, aren't they?
Yeah, and actually, if you are able to clean this ground, you'll see more. You can see like there's another piece there.
Yes.
And when we go up, I'll show you more.
Buried beneath the dirt and foliage of this isolated wilderness, Felix thinks he's found something remarkable. Shards of pottery, tantalizing evidence of an ancient settlement. Somewhere under here may well be the remains of Rapta.
Exactly.
Felix thinks he's found Rapta because of the age and variety of the pottery which lies hidden beneath the surface.